Carol Lee. Hey, Carol Lee. Pastor Ron. Wilhelmina. Lacey Lace. Deacon Lenny Maddox. Teresa McKinney. Hey, T. Laverne Wilson. Been praying for you, Laverne. Mother Cal Sutton. Sheraya Smith. Hey, Sheraya. Stamp. What's up, Stamp? Shonda. Deacon Shamel. What's up, Deke? Mother Gray. Hey, Mother Gray. Tara. Elaine Mattox. Roland. Donice Roland. Roxy. Hey, Roxy. Touch. Pastor Dawn Williams. Hey, Dawn. Minister Donnell Peterson just got finished celebrating his 41st birthday. Yolanda. Hey, Yolanda. Michelle. Hey, Michelle. Do me a favor, everyone. Helen. Hey, Helen. Rosalind Person. Do me a favor, everyone. Hit that share button as you're coming in. Hit that share button as you're coming in. Hit that share button as you're coming in. Peter. Hey, Peter. Just hit that share button as you guys are coming in. When you need a friend, just have faith when you pray. Okay, we got the YouTube family coming in. Bless you, all of you on YouTube that's joining us. All right. All right. Got some folks on YouTube here. When you pray, when you need a friend, when you need a friend. Minister Elder Trina McCrae. When you pray, Danielle. Hey, Danielle. When you need a friend. Thank you, Laverne. Thank you, Laverne. It's so good to have so many of you back on tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Corinne Haynes, thank you so much. Hit that share button when you come in. Hit that share button when you come in. Thank you so much. Jerry, hey, Jerry. Luvina Creighton. Karen Womack Bird, all the way from Ohio. What's going on, Karen? I ain't talked to you in a month of Sundays. How's your son doing? I know he's a grown man now. Wanda. Hey, Wanda. Rico. What's going on, Rico? I ain't seen you in a minute. Carmen Carr. What's going on, Carr? No matter how BB. Hey, BB. Hit that share button as you guys are coming in.
Keep calling me. No matter how far I may run, keep calling me. Keep calling me.
Okay. Linda Lewis, bless you, Linda.
How many times?
All right. So tonight we're about ready to start. I want to just make sure we get as many people in as possible. God bless you, YouTube. All right, they're coming in on YouTube. All right. All right. Okay. Is there a way they can share this on YouTube when they come in? No. I don't know. Pat Wilson. Hey guys, hit that share button as you come in. Hit that share button as you come in. And let me know you're here by setting up some likes and some hearts. We've got our guests waiting. We've got our panelists waiting on tonight. We're ready to get started. The music you hear in the background is Elder Timothy Figueroa blessing us with that song in the background. One of our panelists on tonight. I'm going to start bringing our panelists in. I'm going to start with the distinguished Bishop Liston Page II from the Highway Church International, 371 South 10th Avenue, Paterson, New Jersey. Prolific professor, preacher, propagator of the gospel. Thank you for joining us on tonight, Bishop Page.
Hey, man. Good to see you, Bishop.
You also have with us on this evening another distinguished propagator and bishop in the Lord's Church, Eric A. McDaniel, located in the Bronx, New York, and in North Carolina.
Amen.
To have Bishop Eric A. McDaniel joining us on this evening. And then our next generation panelists are here on tonight. We want to bring them on. Elder Timothy Figueroa, whose voice you hear in the background, the anointed songstress, woman of God, and associate pastor, elder at the, I hope I'm not getting you in trouble by giving you extra titles, but at the New Life Tabernacle, where her father is His Grace, the presiding prelate of the New Life Fellowship, Bishop Eric R. Figueroa. Thank you for joining us. And Pastor, Prophet Jarrell Solomon from the Excelling Church, located in Hollis, Queens. We're so grateful to have this great man of God with us on tonight, Pastor. Then Elder Pastor Melaine Rochford from New Life, also in Brooklyn, New York, where her father is His Grace, the Honorable Bishop Robert Rochford, Joel Rochford. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on tonight for this live. How's everybody doing?
Good. Very good.
Excellent.
Everybody's doing good? I'm going to ask Bishop Eric McDaniel if he would open up this ministry tonight with prayer and ask God to bless everything that will be said and done and to anoint our conversation this evening.
Father, thank you for your presence. Thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to come together and to discuss your word and to discuss your mind. We pray now that, or what we can know of your mind, we pray now that your blessings would be with us. We pray that your anointing would be upon us. Let everything be said with meekness. Let everything be said with love. And I pray that when this is over, we will all say that it was good for us to be here. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, this is part 4 of passing the baton and who's ready to take it. And I want to let you know that if I've gotten 100 emails, that probably wouldn't codify the amount of reactions and things that have come in. And people have told me that just the conversation in and of itself has opened up their eyes and they're hearing and feeling something that they haven't heard and felt before. I personally think that this intergenerational dialogue is good for the body of Christ. I think it's good for us. I think it's good for the generations. And I think it's good for us to not only listen, but to hear. And hopefully, what we hear will penetrate the inner sanctum of where we live and create an expansion of how we think. So, having said that on tonight, I always like to ground everything we do in scripture. And one of the scriptures that I would like to open up with on tonight is Joshua chapter number 1. And because I think this is a very good example of a passing of the baton. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan, you and all this people, to lead to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. In every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I said to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites and the great sea toward going down of the sun shall be your territory. As I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. So there is some continuity, and I paraphrase the end of that. There has always been some continuity, and there has been a platform of succession in ministry and in scripture, and I think that is healthy for us to always, in everything that we do, think about succession planning. And I think that when I think about this kind of dialogue, I think about, succession planning, although we're all in our individual ministries and have already established ministries and platforms that we serve in or are part of, there's still that dynamic of succession because we all come from somewhere. I know that I'm a product of my father and a product of that succession. And if it wasn't passed from him to me and transferred from him to me, then I wouldn't be here on today. And so, I know what that looks like. And I think that some of us on this panel also know what that looks like and feels like as well. So everyone has to receive a baton to continue to run the race that is set before us. So having said that, I think we last week, and let me say this, that I wasn't monitoring, and neither was my team monitoring as meticulous as I wanted to the comments that were made. And I may miss some comments tonight, but let me just share this. There was a comment that was made on the live last time that was negative, and it was directed at getting somebody or and let me share, this is not the platform where we're trying to get somebody. We are dialoguing, we are creating conversation, there can be tension without being a fallout, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? We can have a difference of opinion and still be in fellowship and have an understanding of each other's opinion and respect it. So I just want to set that stage for those of you that are watching. We don't need those comments because there's not going to be any getting here. That's not what this is about. This is about a dialogue of fellowship and understanding each other. So having said that, Bishop Page, how you doing, Bishop?
Man, I'm blessed, Lord. How you doing, friend?
About 5-6 times. Turn it a little. Bishop?
Yes.
So
I didn't hear what you said.
I said that we've been so busy today. We usually talk about 4 or 5 times, but we haven't spoken
right.
today.
That's right. That's right. It's been a very compelling day, to say the least.
Yep. So Bishop McDaniel?
Yes, sir.
Same with you. I mean, we usually talk a couple of times. I don't know what's going on. We haven't talked today at all. We did talk one time today. Yeah, we did talk one time. We both did talk very briefly today.
We've been shut in the coronavirus shut in. You can be that busy.
Well, I haven't been shut in. I'm an essential worker.
I'm shut in. I'm on the Isle of Patmos. It's definitely the Isle.
Melaine, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, Bishop. Doing good. Thank God.
Awesome. Pastor Jarrell?
I'm well, Bishop. How are you?
Good. Timothy, Elder Timothy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I just walked back in the house. I was grilling for dinner.
Oh, okay. All right.
I did my live, then I went out and grilled and jumped back on this live. So wow. I smell like
that's a good thing. And the weather's accommodating it, so that's good.
It's keeping the heat down in the house and the electricity bill down. Okay.
That's right. Okay. All right. So listen, last week we talked about hymnology. We talked about hymns. It was, I think that triggered this whole thing. People were really on that hymn thing. It was like, we need the hymn. Some folks say, well, I don't do. Jarrell said he didn't do too many hymns. I think we all kind of came to the realization that that this newer generation has embraced a cross section of different music depending on what their cultural extrapolation has been. So I think that Pastor Solomon brought out that at his church he does mostly CCM music, and that's Christian contemporary music. For those that don't know what CCM is, and I think that Timothy, you said you guys do a cross section of both contemporary and hymns, and I think that we do at the Center of Hope. We don't do as many hymns as we used to do, because with my dad, we used to do at least 2-3 hymns. You wouldn't get about 2-3 hymns, programmed into the service. But I try to at least program at least one hymn, because there's something about a hymn that, and usually I'm the one that kind of raises it up when I get up or whatever, because they already have the song, everything programmed, and this is what they're going to do and what have you. Elaine, I forgot where you were with the hymns, but I know where your dad is with hymns, and so, but we closed that chapter, I think, on last week. Did anybody want to revisit anything from last week that we dealt with as it relates to any of the dialogue that we had?
I think I'd like to clarify my stance. I believe that I don't know if there was any type of miscommunication or misunderstanding. My stance is that I love hymns, but I also love some of the new music. I think that hymns are powerful, and that missing the hymns or not doing the hymns will cause you to miss out on what can cause you to miss something that's very powerful, that's very awesome. But I also feel like missing out on some of the new music. If you miss that, you miss something very awesome. I believe across the board, as long as it glorifies God, I think I said that, as long as it glorifies God, I'm with it. I'm for it. I would never, ever, ever try to tell anyone how to worship. I would not dictate to anyone your style of worship. Whatever is working for you, if souls are getting saved, if God is being glorified, go ahead and do it. And that was my only point was, speaking of church in general, the hymns are just wonderful. But if you decide not to do it, that's fine. That's your decision. If you decide to do it, it's your decision. But I would never, ever, ever take part in um, trying to tell somebody that you got to do this and you got to do that. I would not do that. I understand that just like when we were coming along, we came and brought in new ideas and new things and new ways of doing things. And so the next generation also has the right to do the same thing. And so I'm speaking um, from my place. My place is, I like all of it, but whatever works for you, as long as people getting saved and God's being glorified, go ahead. The only time I'm gonna fight is it's if God is not being glorified, and that's the only time I'll fight. But there's no need to fight here. If you decide to take the George Washington Bridge, I decide to take the Lincoln Tunnel. We all end up in New York. That's all that counts. That's it.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Bishop,
Well,
can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I want to make sure you guys can hear me. Some
Yes.
feedback. So, last week was very interesting. I think we ended off on a very interesting note. I think one of the pieces that was even better was Bishop Page said, "Let's take the gloves off," and I think that opened it up to wherein these are discussions that we do. I think these are this is good discussion, dialogue between the generations. Because our generation, which the millennial generation, do want to hear, the thoughts of the older generation, and the older generation want to know the thoughts of the younger generation. And I wanted to kind of make clear on that I stated twice in our live last week that we do hymns. And when we do them, you can tell the church people that's been in church all their life when we do those hymns, because I mean they are, yes sir, you know how we do, yes sir, and they're with it. But predominantly of our congregation, they'll probably lift their hand or something, but at the same time, we deal with the generation, like we went from singing songs just straight out to now putting lyrics on the screen. That's how the generations have shifted, because now you have a generation that they want to know what they're singing. They want to see what they're singing. They want the words on their screen so that when they sing it, they know what they're saying, etc. And that's how time has shifted. So our church do hymns. I would say probably um, maybe twice a month we'll come out with a hymn, especially on Communion Sunday. Communion Sunday, you know, it's Hymn Sunday all the way.
Right.
And we do our hymns on Communion Sunday. But I want to also make clear that I appreciate the hymns of the church. And as I stated, I come from, I mean, I can go from word to word when it comes down to hymns or what have you. And I think Bishop Eric McDaniel said it best. As long as it's glorifying God, I think that's the bigger picture here. Is it glorifying God? Are we singing songs that uplift the name Jesus? Are we singing songs? I said something a week ago. I said, our hymn, my hymn might be different from the next person hymn. We sing hymns that were passed down through the generations. But I believe that there are songs that we're going to sing in this time frame that years from now, many years from now, someone said, Israel and New Breed, you are Alpha and Omega. In this age, that's a hymn. And many years from now, many people will deem that to be a hymn. And I think that if we just learn, like Bishop Eric McDaniel said, as long as it's lifting the name of Jesus Christ, as long as it's pointing souls to Jesus Christ, at the end of the day, if I sing down at the cross, or if I sing, oh, what a wonderful name, or if I sing, be lifted high, as long as souls are being pointed to Jesus Christ, I believe that it works either way. Jesus was magnified. Jesus was exalted on high, and lives were transformed and saved. So that's what I believe. But I believe in hymns. I know I'm cutting edge. I know, I get it, but I do believe in hymns, and I know them backwards and forwards, and I know how to pop them out when it's time to pop them out. I know when to sing them. But predominantly the church that I pastor and the people that God has called me to reach are a different breed of people that I am catering to. I'm not conforming to the world. I'm not conforming to the way the world do it, or I'm not conforming to what they want. I am just meeting them where they are, and then bringing them to where Jesus is, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Bishop Page, did I see you moving towards a question?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. All right. So, I think that, what I was going to make a point of as it relates to the hymns of the church is not just the hymns itself, but I think that everything that we do as it relates to foundational relationship with God. And I think that, there are some things that we all embrace, whether it be Holy Communion, water baptism. These are two ordinances that we embrace. I think that when I look at Deuteronomy 8, where it says, every commandment which I command you today, you must be careful to observe, that you may live and multiply and go and possess the land. And you shall remember the Lord your God, how he led you all the way these 40 years. And if you go further into it, it's really a passing down of history, so that we won't forget where we've come from and what the foundation of our faith was made of. So I think that that's what the hymns in one dimension represents for the church.
I believe that when you understand the African diaspora and how important hymns are indigenously to us as a people, that is what creates, in my humble opinion, the synergy and the unity of all types of music. Because as an African American, you cannot embrace music without really having a deep appreciation for the African diaspora and all of those things that are germane to that. I do agree with Pastor Solomon that hey, you got to reach the generation that God has anointed you to reach. I agree with Bishop McDaniel that it's all good as long as it glorifies God. But I just choose in my ministry, I just choose to have a hymn done every Sunday, just out of honor for that diasporic thought in my mind of the indigenousness of what it means for us as a people. I think that there's a blending. It could be a harmonious blending of both, where everyone is blessed and edified from it. So I don't see one being better than the other. I just think it comes down to personal preference and what you were called to do. And I like what you said, stating what I said last week about let's taking the gloves off. I think iron sharpens iron. I think critical thinkers are what's going to be needed in COVID-19. I truly believe that COVID-19 is going to expose the frauds from the faiths as it relates to ministry, teaching, and preaching. I truly believe that because iron sharpens iron, that contention is not contentiousness. And I think we as an African American people, we don't know the difference between tension that creates knowledge and appreciation and an expansion of thought. We tend to think disagreement means that I'm against you, and I'm not against you. I'm just expressing my individual opinion. And I think that's healthy for us to do. And I don't think that right should be taken from anyone. So whatever your views are, I applaud them. I appreciate them. I embrace them. I love them. But I don't think that should cause me to be stifled, to be looked at antiquated, archaic, because there are some indigenous things that are who we are that I want to maintain and bring maintenance to and even highlight. I want to appreciate the contemporary mixed with the secular. I love it. I appreciate it, but I also appreciate those songs that may have been birthed out of an experience that were birthed years ago that now I stand on the shoulders of. I just think that those things should be equally as appreciated. That's all where I'm at. But I love it all. I love it.
I just want to add, or maybe just ask a question. You mentioned hymns from the diaspora, and one of the reasons why we should appreciate it is because of what it represents as it relates to. Now, can you give some more clarity on that? Because when I think of a song like "When Peace Like a River Attendeth My Way," it is well. I don't think about that as a song, a hymn from the diaspora. But can you kind of give some clarity on that?
When I talk about an African diaspora, I'm talking about people of color that have been misplaced throughout the world. When we have hymns and those type of songs, those songs were birthed out of their individual experiences as they were disconnected from family, loved ones, pain. We as an African American people have songs in us, and those songs basically was born out of pain, out of trauma, out of separation. And all of us are a part of an African diaspora because we're part of the people of color. No matter where they come from, we're all a part of that. And we should have an appreciation for the Caribbean music. We should have an appreciation for the African music. We should have an appreciation for the African American music. So when I talk about an African diaspora, that's what I refer to.
Can I expound on that real quick, Bishop?
Sure.
So I get the whole concept of paying homage and honor to where we come from. But when we speak of passing the baton, one of the things that this generation we get stuck at is we make everything about us as a people when God, this generation is saying, we understand, we know what we come from. We've been taught what we come from, and we're not dishonoring it. I think we automatically are considered dishonoring it because we don't do it so much, or we don't pay homage to it as much as others. But this generation and passing the baton, so we're speaking of millennial generation now. Our span is we're thinking broader. God is bigger than one race. We're not trying to cater to a race of people. We are catering to people at large that God has created. He didn't just create African Americans. He created all of us. And this generation, we're not stuck on catering to just one set of people. I'm not saying that's not what you're saying.
No. That hold on. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that.
Okay.
Because when I read the Holy Scriptures and I read the Bible was a book. The Israelite. It was God's chosen.
Say that again.
It was.
You went out.
Oh, y'all can't hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
We hear you.
Okay, when the Bible was written to Judeo-Christian believers, all right? The Jews, right? So God called one nation of people to bless the whole world. One nation to bless the whole world. He came to his own received him not, that opened up the way for the Gentiles to be grafted into this Abrahamic promise. I believe, this is what I believe. I believe we can be diverse. We can have an appreciation for all of the nations of the world. All I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with me having a great level of gratitude and appreciation for my forefathers. And I do that by keeping that history before the next generation. I have two children that are millennials. My daughter's a millennial. My son is a millennial. And they went to college, they graduated college, and I always tell them, don't forget where you have come from. Have an appreciation for all people, but be able to articulate your story, where you come from.
Can I read this real quick? This says the history of hymns predates the 19th century Father Faber by at least 2,000 years. The word hymn comes from the Greek word hymnos and gives this some indication as to the age of hymnody. They were originally songs written in honor of the gods, leading figures, and heroes. At the time of the Reformation, the 16th century, the reformers wanted the liturgy to be said in the vernacular. They also insisted upon hymns which could be understood and sung by the people and wished to get away from plain chant hymnody, most of which could only be performed by monks. But the reformers demanded that the new hymns should be strictly scripturally based and therefore began to introduce versions of the Psalms that highlight the scripture. So I just wanted, when I was asking you to clarify before between a diaspora and a traditional hymn, there are some hymns, Meet Me Down by the River, which was a signal during slavery. Let's come down and figure out how we're going to get out of here. That's, a hymn from the diaspora. But the hymn from the Greek word hymnos are hymns that were developed to honor their gods. All right. And when the reformers, of course, before this, after the 16th century, when the reformers began to rethink hymnody, they wanted the hymn to be a reflection of the scripture. So that I just wanted to make sure that, we wasn't confusing the diaspora hymnody from the conventional hymns that were developed outside of the diaspora experience?
Okay, well, let's be more technical. Since y'all want to be technical, we'll be technical. Let's go then to the Reformation. Let's talk about why hymns were written during the age of the Reform or the age of protest led by pre-reformist reformers like Martin Luther, John Wycliffe, all of them. Now, the reason they came up with what was considered hymns at that time is because the Roman Catholic Church had taken idolatrous practices and put them in their religious liturgy. And many of the songs that they were singing were not scripturally based. So Martin Luther and those other reformers were not trying to start another Reformation, which would be another denomination or another organization. They just wanted reforms in the church and reforms in the structure, liturgy of their worship. So what Martin Luther does, he goes as a professor and he writes down 95 questions of inquiry based on his understanding of the book of Romans, which was Paul's magnus opus writing. It was his most important writing. So what they do is he said, I don't really like the liturgy. I don't like the songs. They don't really reflect the scripture. So he goes on this quest to, how can I say it, to reinvigorate the scripture in the consciousness of the Bible. So he came up with what was considered in the Latin phrases that would reflect the real heartbeat of a reformation, which was solo scriptura, by scripture alone, sola gratia, by grace alone, solo Christus, by Christ alone, solo della gloria, by the glory of God alone, because they were connecting themselves to so many other practices that the liturgy, which included organized form religion in the singing, they said, we can't do it like that. We need to take it back and put everything scripturally based. I got that. But when I'm talking about a hymn, when I'm thinking about a hymn in the African American church, I'm talking about those songs of experience. Those, have you tried? I'm thinking about them songs that.
I don't cut you off, but I don't consider that a hymn. I'm sorry.
You didn't let me finish my thought. You didn't let me finish my thought. I was gonna say those type of songs that we sung then, I didn't consider those to be hymns. I'm talking about hymns of an experience. Now I'm not a musician like Darrell and Eric is, but Eric, what kind of, give me a hymn. Give me the words of a hymn that would be considered a hymn.
Amazing Grace.
It is well.
It is well.
Down at the cross.
Malane got something to say.
I mean, that's all I'm calling a hymn. That's all I'm calling a hymn. And I'm not debating one is better than the other. That's not my debate. My debate is sing whatever you want to. My point is, if I choose to do a hymn to bring honor and memory to those that have gone before me, that's my right. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. But I think that hymns cannot be defined one-dimensionally, culturally one-dimensionally. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that when we look at the hymns, when we look at a hymn like It Is Well, that's not a black hymn, nor well, maybe some people might consider it, but I mean, I think that hymn, it's not, you get my point? I think that.
I don't get you. Malane, what was you going to say, Malane?
Well, hymns are not black or white or whatever have you.
Well, that's what I said. I mean, but he is saying, Bishop Page is saying that. He's saying that hymns out of the diaspora, out of the experience of the African American culture, are hymns that he is lifting up. I'm saying that, I'm not sure that I consider those hymns.
Okay, you don't have to.
No, I'm just saying. I understand everything you said before relative to the reformers and the Christo-Glorian and all that. That's all correct. But I'm just saying there's certain songs that I consider hymns and certain songs I don't think that are hymns.
Okay.
Malaine, you want to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I guess I was, based on what Bishop Page was saying, I was a little confused because I guess when I think of him, I do think more of like the Amazing Grace, which was written by someone who used to trade slaves and then was saved and repented of that sin. And then also it as well, the man who lost his family, I think they had drowned or something. But these are white men. So that's why I was trying to get the connection between the African diaspora and these white men, particularly one who had profited greatly from trading slaves.
Yep.
And the fact that we sing their songs and, that
You're right.
There's a level of resistance from a lot of Black.
You're right. You're right.
Particularly who say, I will never sing a song of someone who traded my ancestors and think that that's how I'm going to connect to God. So you got that there. And then also, I think this kind of highlights the need for a strong minister of music. So not just a worship leader, but a minister of music, meaning a person who has the ability and the musical depth and knowledge to take the hymns that we consider those traditional hymns in the Red Book, let's say, or whatever your denomination is, whatever your hymn book is, in addition to the songs like Bishop Page talked, our traditional, let's say, Pentecostal, apostolic, have you tried Jesus? The windows of heaven are open. Take those things. Take the CCM things, the contemporary gospel things, and be able to use them through the ministry of music in the congregation in a way that would be appreciated. In addition to that, having the pulse of God. What is God trying to do in this congregation? How do I put the music to the pulse of God that ties with the pastor's heart and the heart of the people? So it's really a heavy job. I think when people have a gift to sing, or to play, we just label them like a minister of music. But I don't think it's as simple as that. Like, I think there's layers and levels to be able to, for a congregation, really take all these dynamics that everyone has spoken of, making sure we appreciate him. Like, if I put my secular hat on and say, when you go to a party, for those of you who go, if there is a DJ, that DJ is charged with the task of playing music that will move that room.
That's right.
Right? So when we come, we didn't come to sit down. We didn't come to have a drab time. We came to really have a dope time. If we want to dance, we want to connect with people. We want to hear the songs that maybe back in the day we grew up on, in addition to the new stuff. And somebody has to be able to take their knowledge of music, their knowledge of how to flow from one song to the next song, what song to pull out from the 60s to make people get moving and to bring back those precious memories. I feel like, okay, that's the secular realm, but in the church realm, how do we use music as a tool to further usher people into the presence of God? So that minister of music, whoever it may be, really has a hard job.
Yeah.
Because everybody here has an opinion about what they want to hear. Everybody in the congregation has a different opinion about what they want to hear and what they don't want to hear. So how do you really try to serve the people and serve God and make those things come together in a way that we can appreciate and really grow in God together musically? That's my thoughts.
Absolutely amazing. That was great. That was great, Malaine. When we ended last week, I started to look, and what I came across was the concept of integration. The concept of integration. And when I looked it up, it says the concept of integration refers to the end result of a process that aims to stitch together different and disparate subsystems so that data contained in each becomes a part of a larger, more comprehensive system. And so the concept of what I thought about was my hope is built on nothing less. And if you think about that song, we've heard it in the hymn version. You know, my hope is built on nothing less. And then we've heard it in a choir version, my hope. And then we've heard it in a Hillsong version, my hope is built on nothing less. But it's the same hymn, it's the same lyrics, but it has been integrated.
Yes.
It's been integrated. And there are hundreds of other songs that have been, the same thing has been done to them. And so we have to, there is nothing wrong with a little alteration in the music. I like to keep the integrity of a song, but there's nothing, you've heard it in every generation. And Hillsong, if we don't talk about Black, white, Asian, this, that, and the third, that is, Hillsong is extremely popular across all of it at this point.
Absolutely.
And that is a hymn that they use and converted, okay, into a worship song. And so,
Timothy, I think what you're doing, which is great, is what Pastor Solomon's probably saying as well. You're making that song relevant to today. Long as it's relevant, you're not changing the lyrics. You may put different music to it, but you're making the song relevant. And I think that's great.
It's the power of integration. And it's not just about music in the church. It has to go across the board.
Absolutely.
You gotta stitch this together so that one part becomes one part and the other part becomes a part of a larger, more, it says a larger, more comprehensive system, which means everything wasn't always as comprehensive. Everything that was done then may not be as comprehensive to this generation. But when we stitch it all together, what does it do? It makes us bigger, it makes us stronger, it makes us better. And so we can't get rid of it. We can't not do it because millennials don't know it. I'm going to say that. We can't not do it because millennials don't know it. Because if you're talking about people that are unchurched, they don't know no church songs. You got to teach them everything.
You'd be surprised. They do. No.
You got to teach them, even if they know the lyrics, you got to teach them the meaning of it and the value behind it and worship in it. And so if you teach them, if they're unchurched, and you're teaching them the new stuff, you also have a blank canvas to teach them some of the old stuff. And that is where the integration takes place. If we're talking about young people that were in church at one time and left church and came back, then we're also talking about a generation that did know those songs that can be reintroduced to them, even if the music is a little changed or a little altered, you know what I'm saying, to make it more palatable or relevant to that generation. But that concept of integration has to go across the board when passing the baton, because it only makes us bigger, stronger, and better.
That was excellent. That was an excellent definition of the end of this whole dialogue. At the end of the day, he that winneth souls is wise, as my late friend R.J. Washington would say, and he that winneth not is otherwise. So I think integration is a perfect description of the fusion. And I want to go back to, because that was, I remember having this dialogue with my dad years and years ago, and that's why, I know that, the thoughts that we have, I can identify, because I had these same thoughts. And when you said, Malay, it's hard for me to sing a song that a slave owner or a former slave owner, wrote the song, realizing that, these songs were connected to, well, even I understand that, and that I can struggle with that dynamic. Even when you said it, I was struggling with that dynamic, because you're right. Why would I want to sing that song, right? But when I hear the song, uh, at the cross, where I first saw the light, where the burdens of the heart rolled away, it was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy all the days. Now, I don't know who wrote that song. I don't know if he traded slave or if he traded.
It's relevant.
But I know one thing. It was a message that brought me to the cross. And so through music. And so, but I thought, you're right. That's right. But then I also, and we all know on this side, there are people that have written some anointed songs. They have written anointed music. Okay. But the music don't match the lifestyle. I mean, I don't know how different, but we don't stop singing the song. We don't stop singing the songs. So I mean, I'm not saying that, and when so I mean that there is definitely some parity between, there's a lot to think about. When Malay, you said something that's really powerful. That's a lot to think about. Whose songs are we singing?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, this might seem real simple to ask, but if we don't sing those songs, does that neglect that God is present, or does that neglect that there's something wrong with the? I just want to be clear.
No. Absolutely not. And guess what? And again, I think all of us are saying it's a matter of preference. Mm-hmm. And I think that Malane said something she knocked it out the park. There's a difference. See, and a lot of times in our services, we don't give the same deference to the minister of music, or can I take it further? The pastor who produces the music, the pastor of worship, the pastor. The word, the music, the songs that we sing is the word in music. So you said it. You said, when I go to a party, I'm depending upon the integrity or the insight of that DJ to sensitize to the crowd. Who I got out here now? I knew who I got out here. You know what I'm saying? So the same thing is relative in ministry. So Jarrell, to your point, I didn't mean to jump in that quick. No. I don't think that at all. No.
I believe as we're talking about these generations, I believe one of the biggest problems that we're running into, and again, there's a couple of different platforms that are angling from the same point of view right now. How do we pass this baton? What's the thing between the generations? As a matter of fact, I'll put it out there. I did a live last week. I'm sure y'all probably heard. I did a live last week pertaining the war because instead of passing the baton, what's happening is that there's a war actually that we're not speaking of because we can't pass something that we're not willing to deal with first. And the truth of the matter is that there's a war, and the war is the older generation feels as if the new generation is not seeing it the way they see it, or if we don't do it the way the older generation did it, then sometimes it's demonized. Sometimes it's considered not God. Sometimes it's considered just not good enough, if I could say, because you have a generation that's going, well, the way God gave it to us. Because guess what? When and I don't even want to say you guys, but when your fathers, when they came up, they seen it a way that you guys didn't see it.
You're right.
And there were days when God gave y'all something that y'all was afraid to go to your father and say, listen, this is what the Lord is dealing with me about. And I know it might seem out of the box or crazy, but it's the same thing that we're enduring now. We're like, man, this is how God gave it to us. And we're being demonized, or we're being cast to the sideline because we're saying, hey, that's not how God gave it to me. Even with these hymns, and I heard Elder Timothy say, bridging it together. And she's right. Every generation sung these different songs in a different melody, but just about verbatim the same words or what have you. And I believe that's what's happening right now. Even right now, there are some times when we sing songs and the song of the Lord come forth. When you speak of the song of the Lord, there's songs that just flow out of you like a river. And then those songs can be considered a hymn to him. If I make sense, that's my hymn to God. I'm singing a song that flooded in my spirit, that sung praises to God. And when you don't sing it the way the Black church sing it, obviously there's something wrong with it.
Well, no. I know that's what I want you to get away from, because I don't want you to characterize hymns through a African American lens. I think hymns should have its own designation. You know what I'm saying? The word, because remember, the hymnody was developed to be a scriptural presentation in music. That's what the hymnody was originally designed. No matter whether a crackhead wrote it, a slave owner wrote it, or a church member wrote it. That's what it was designed to do. So I think you're right. Now let's go back to this. Let's move that. Let's go to the war that you're talking about, because all of us on this live have been your age and y'all's age, and all of us. I know when I was 23 years old, starting as a pastor, a young pastor, I know the stuff that I was saying was, my dad was looking at me like I lost my mind. And, but there was, I would, even though I was afraid to share it, I had to share it. I would bounce it off of him. And he said, you crazy. And I said, Dad, I don't think I am. And sometimes he would come back and say, Mitch, you know what? You was right. I'm glad you pulled my coat to that. I'm glad you made me aware of that. So, I mean, I'm really, I guess, when I think about the names of our churches, the Lord's Church, Highway Church International, Center of Hope International, New Life, Excelling. I mean, these names seem to be pretty progressive to me and pretty contemporary in contextualization. So, I mean, it's not like, I don't want to call no names to make anybody feel bad, but it's not like Mount Table or Mount Chair or Mount, Kitchen. You know what I mean? These are, contemporary reflections of God. Center of Hope International. The name of our church originally was Long Island City Gospel Church, a center of hope for all people. And so when the Lord was dealing with me about the change that would be more ecumenical, a name that would be more ecumenical, I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I was thinking about, do you think we might be able to alter the name? I didn't say change because, I wanted to go kind of slow, and because it was something that he had always said all the time, it was easy for me to kind of maneuver it in, but he let me do it. So, I mean, but I don't really see the war between the generations, because I guess I'm not in the war. Like, I'm not in warfare with you or with Mullane or with Timothy or any other millennials in ministry. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I don't see that, but I think that there's a natural thought process that sets generations against each other, that dynamic mentally, and I think that if it's not talked about, then it'll just be assumed that it's there. Now I talk too much, so I'm gonna let somebody else talk now. Y'all scared to talk.
I think it's not just in the church. It happens in homes. It happens across the board where, one generation will have a different idea of another. Young people are trying to assert themselves and are trying to get their ideas across and trying to come into their own. And the previous generation has already been settled in their ways and settled in things. Like, I know one thing about my dad. He's not really interested in changing much because everything he does works for him. It works. And he is not interested in changing stuff that is still working for him. And so it works. He has been in ministry for, I would say, over 45 years. He's been in ministry and pastoring 37 years. And so things, and his way has worked. And so trying to integrate something else into something that is already working is very difficult. Now, if it's not working, it might be a little easier to introduce something new, or might be a little more palatable. But sometimes when things are working, then introducing something new can be difficult for a previous generation. But again, I believe that dynamic is not necessarily a war. It's I personally think some of it, and I think I said it last week, that it's a necessary evil. I think it's the kingdom suffereth violence, but the violent take it by force. It's a necessary evil that these things, some of this happen because it develops people. In my house, I know it developed me. In some churches, it develops the next generation. And so I don't necessarily think it's a war. Like Bishop said, I'm definitely not at war with any generation at all. And so I don't think that it should be characterized as a war necessarily, but that it's definitely a necessary tension for growth, for development. And sometimes you gotta, my father has allowed us to step into things that didn't work out. And we were able to see that everything we're trying to do doesn't always work out. And then, it develops you in so many areas. So I don't necessarily think it's a war. I don't think we have to characterize it as that. And I think some of it is very necessary for development.
But obviously though, there must be, Melaine, you go ahead. Okay. You was gonna say something, Melaine?
Well, I think I'm kind of in the middle of Timothy and Solomon with this because I kind of view it as a tug of war. And it's not for everyone, but I do talk to millennials that say they feel this tug between them and their leader, whether it's the ideas they're bringing to the table, wanting to do something new, feeling like they never get opportunities, but then other churches want to give them opportunities to maybe speak or do something, but their leader says, no, you can't do that. And sometimes it may be, the leader doesn't see that the person is ready. Sometimes it may be something else. And so what I'm often wondering and praying personally is like, Lord, help us all, like what Timothy talked about, the integration, help us all to see our rights and see our flaws. Because just because you've been in it longer than me, don't mean you perfected the model. You know what I mean? Just because you've been doing it. I think my dad, he's 68, so about 53 years, he's been in ministry. He's been preaching from 15 years old. But there's still things that I feel like, especially in dealing with this generation, I'm like, Dad, you're a grandfather age. So the average 20-year-old is not going to relate to you because you're like their pop-pop. You know what I mean? They may hear the word and receive it, but there's also an experience gap between you and that person, which means a younger person sometimes needs to fill some of those experience gaps and even translate what you're saying to their level. Will you grant them that opportunity with the children? Because if we think about the integration, intergenerational model for a pastor like mine who's up in age, the average 20-something-year-old that's going to come into the church, you know, they may not identify with him. They may identify more with a Solomon who's closer to their age, has younger children. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes the vision of what you want to see, you may see in somebody that's more like a peer than more like a father or mother for the female, those who are female pastors and bishops. So how do we, I think sometimes I do sense there is this tug and I can't trace the root or the heart of it, which is why conversations like this to me are very meaningful, because I want to hear what the older generation has to say. Like, are you feeling it too? Do you feel a tug? Do you feel like we're trying to take something from you? And for the younger generation, do you feel like, you know, you're being held back, so to speak, or criticized or critiqued, overly critiqued, unnecessarily critiqued? So I don't know. I think I have more questions about this than answers.
Wow.
Well, I know that the pastors, the millennial pastors and ministers that I deal with at my church, you know, I don't feel like it's a tug. I think that they're pushing me, like you said, they're pushing me to see things differently. And I have to be, you know, open enough to, you know, listen and hear, you know. So I try to practice that so that I'm not the impediment, you know, and in terms of the generational gap, because what you said was very true. You know, some people will relate to, you know, of course. I mean, I felt that when I was in my 20s pastoring, I thought I was it. I was when you looked up relatable, my picture was there. I mean, yeah. I mean, of course you're gonna think that. Yeah. I mean, and it probably is true with younger people, you know, but you know, so I mean there's one thing that I, you know, in succeeding my dad, that if I would have had a little more wisdom, my church probably would be 2 times the size or 3 times the size that it is now. Because I was so like Solomon, I was so like, I'm not where God was. I was just I'm where God is going. I'm so far ahead of you people in the dark ages, you know, and you know, but you know, these are people that my dad birthed, right? And that if I was wise, I could have held some of them, which was the foundation, and then fused the young, you know, which was the future. But I was not wise enough to do that. But I know now from the mistakes that I've made in doing that, how to advise and guide someone that succeeds or is taking the baton from another leader or serving. I served with my dad a long time, you know, before I actually became the senior pastor. You know, my dad took time to meticulously train me, you know, and I didn't like it all the time. I didn't think he was right all the time. But I think the difference maybe in this generation, because every generation gets a little more cavalier than the last, I think that there might be a lack of deference. There may be a little loss of like, yo, man, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need that, you know, type of thing. So, I mean, there may be that. I don't have that, but I mean, I don't know if that's what you guys are describing. You know.
I just want to say, I just, as you know, as a person, I have the heart of a peacemaker. So I always have a heart of peace. So whenever we describe our differences as a war, it just kind of troubles me a little bit, because when you look at a war, what do you do in a war?
Right.
You have 2 groups trying to kill each other.
No fight.
And I don't think that's our goal here. I don't think because we see things differently, I don't think we should be at a war. I don't think it should be a war. I think we all should be able to operate through our own worldview, through our own lens, how we see things let us do it. And I don't think that the younger generation should demonize the older generation because we see it one way, and I don't think the older generation should demonize the younger generation because they see it another way. We all see it different. Listen, eventually things are going to change. There are going to be reforms. If you look at what we do now and look at church 50 years ago, you're going to see there's some differences. If you see it differently, if you want to do it differently, go ahead and do it differently. I said it before and I say it again. If you take the George Washington Bridge and I take the Lincoln Tunnel and somebody else takes the Holland Tunnel and somebody else takes the Verrazano Bridge, we all get to where we're trying to go. We're just going different ways. Why is one way better than the other? I can't get it. So I don't understand why we have to create a war. Then it creates a war because now we got to watch everything that we say and make sure that we don't say anything, because I say I love CCM. Now the people that love hymns are offended because I say I love CCM, or vice versa. Why can't we just love what we love, like what we like, and we all get together and do what we need to do. That's it. That's all.
So I can, Bishop McDaniel. So when Elder Timothy said she doesn't see it as a war, I would say it becomes a war when it goes for a period of time and we don't speak on it. So it took a pandemic. Let's be honest. It took a pandemic for us to start highlighting conversations and dialogue that we should have been having long time ago. It wasn't until this pandemic took place that all of a sudden everybody's locked in their homes, and now we're realizing, hey, wait a minute, let's talk about stuff that we should have dealt with a very long time ago. Let's deal with it now. And I think that it went too long without it being, thank God for this opportunity, but I think it went way too long for this to transpire now, when we could have had these discussions when we were so busy traveling. We were so busy having conferences everywhere. We were so busy doing this and doing that. I think these conversations should have been had at those points, because now we're looking at this stuff and everybody has a platform now of the generations. Every platform just about is generations. And we waited until this point, and now we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with, and we're going to take the gloves off, Bishop Page, remember, right? We're going to take the gloves off. So when you hear, and I'm not speaking of this platform, when you hear other platforms of people in leadership, I mean, dogging the next generation out, demonizing everything we do, and we don't have, and we're bastards, and we're this, and we're that, and we don't want to hear nobody, and we don't. Then you have this generation. I'm gonna tell you what the war is. We're being told that we don't want to hear nobody, or we don't want to listen to no one, and this generation is saying the same thing. We've been trying to talk to y'all for God knows how long, but either they were too busy, either they heard us but they weren't listening, and it's the same thing. So we've been trying to talk for the longest. We've been trying to say, hey, listen, because you guys have to remember, a lot of the millennials and younger generation looked up to you guys, and still do, looked up to you guys. They wanted to be in the room with y'all. They wanted to sit in your office. They wanted to sit around you and just see what you do. And I'm not speaking of you in general. I'm just speaking as that generation. And a lot of times what happened was either they were too busy, or I'll get to you, son, or we'll have a conversation. And these conversations never happened. They never, ever happened. And now that we're in a pandemic, now we want to highlight these conversations wherein sons and daughters been desiring to have these conversations for the longest. And then when you go across social media, you got to remember this generation is very social media driven. We listen, we hear, we watch. We're watching, we're listening, and we're hearing. And this generation is not clueless to when they're being bashed or when they're being thrown in the lake of fire. And now when you hear stuff like we're bastards, when you hear stuff like you don't want to hear nobody, when you hear stuff like it ain't God, when you hear stuff like they're doing it wrong, God ain't in that mess, when you hear stuff like all it is mess, when you hear stuff like all it is not a growing church, it's a swelling church. I can't tell you how many times I heard it's a swelling church. Why can't it be God's hand is on that house? Why can't it be? Why does it have to always be something when we've been wanting to have these conversations? It's not like we didn't want to have these conversations.
Can I just say something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
When you say about it taking this pandemic to open up these conversations, I think just because you haven't seen the conversations on this platform or on a platform like this doesn't mean that the conversation has not been had. Millennials that I come in contact with, I specifically, and I encourage them, no, come on, let's talk and speak your mind. You don't have to say what I say. You don't have, come on, speak your mind. Let me hear you. You hear me and I hear you. And maybe we can come to some type of understanding, even if we can't come to an agreement. So I have been involved, and I'm sure others have been involved in these conversations, but maybe just not on this platform.
Right. And then I also think I was going to say too, and I think Dawn said it. Oh yeah, there it is. Read that. That says this was appointed time for this conversation, God ordained, perhaps before the conversation would have been heard and not listened to. Hearing is a gift and listening is a skill. Yes, I mean, I think that you're right. I think that the pandemic gave us an opportunity to think about a lot of things. You know what I mean? As Bishop McDaniels was saying, even as you were saying, Solomon, I'm thinking about, my minister saying, Bishop, I want to talk to you about something. Okay, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And in the scheme of busyness, you get lost in the call. You don't get the call that you was expecting to get. I know that feeling. I've been there. It's a part of the process. It's a part of development, and some of it is, it's a lot of it is processing your patience. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes is misinterpreted as being ignored. And sometimes you are being ignored, but sometimes, other times you're not. It's a part of the process. I remember when I told my dad I felt the call to preach, and I thought that he was going to be so happy when I came and told him. I ran into his room. I said, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" And he wasn't excited at all. He said, "What?" I said, "I got the call to preach," and he never even looked back a second time at me when I said that. And he turned around and said, "Well, the first call is preparation." And I said, "Well, what do you think I've been doing the last 4 years?" You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's not always what you want to hear when you're going to your leader. There's an art and science in mentoring. Some people do it well. Some people don't do it at all. Some people don't do it well at all. But I think that this pandemic has pushed this conversation to the public platforms. I definitely believe that. But I think that in our individual silos, there are conversations going on in between the generations. I know that in our church it is, and I'm sure Bishop of Gaines and all of your churches, there should be that intergenerational conversation going on. And the reason why we're having this conversation is maybe we're going to be the catalyst, the impetus for other pastors to think about their position, with the younger generation and vice versa, and say, hey man, maybe we should be dialoguing. 1 John 5 says, if you have not been born of God, you can't love his children. So, I mean, if you've been born again, if you've been born of God, you got to have a level of communication.
This is a and again, I'm sorry for speaking, but I believe this is about our generations. This is a generation where you are dealing with, and I'm sure the last generation came from it, but it's very strong in this generation, wherein you have a lot of millennials who are fatherless biologically, and even in this generation, motherless. We find out that there are more mothers missing out of the house now than ever before. You're dealing with a generation who does not have that outlet. You have that generation, and wherein we came up in church, especially those millennials that are church babies. We came up in church, and to us, our spiritual, our pastors was our fathers, our pastors was our mothers. So now you're dealing with a generation that says, hey, listen, I did not have that outlet. My mother wasn't there, my father, and this is not a pity party, but you're talking about a generation that says, listen, if you say that the church of God is there to secure me, to protect me, I can run to the church, I can come to safety, it's a safe haven. What happens when you believe that, but that's not what you get in return? I'm not speaking of me, because I had that from Bishop Brown. I'm speaking of the generation that I am leading. And that is a generation that says, hey, I'm running to the church. I'm running to what's supposed to be my safe place. And when I run there, my business is being preached over the pulpit. I came to the pastor. I said what was said. I did what they said to do. And now my whole pregnancy is all over the pulpit. My whole mess up is spoken over the sermon. The sermon wasn't about Jesus. It was about my mess up. Well, I mean, these are things that this generation is struggling with.
But that's not something that is germane to this generation, your generation. I mean, all generations preceding you
Absolutely
experience the same thing.
But this is the generation that's saying, okay, we hear it, but when does this stop? When do we get to the place of more healing, more dealing with, more private dealing with, more, hey, let's take
people that preach, pastors or anyone that preaches someone's personal sharing, all right, is ignorant. Period. Ignorant. If you're preaching what someone came and told you in confidence, then the pastor who shared it or whoever shared it is ignorant, and you shouldn't be there. Okay? You shouldn't be there. Listen, my dad told me this a long time ago. You have to trust the integrity of the interpreter, because you can't receive if you don't trust that person's integrity. And that integrity has to be demonstrated and proven over time.
But what happens when, I'm sorry, y'all gonna kick me off this live. What happens when you're put into this mind frame of, if you leave, you're out of order? You know, it's the spirit of control, the spirit of manipulation in the church.
Solomon, let me just say this. What you're describing, I'm in total agreement with you. And I think that the other panelists may be, well, let me just say for myself, I'm in agreement with what you're saying, but I'm saying this, that there has been ignorance that has been pursued and preached from time immemorial. And that's just ignorant when people do what you're describing. Bishop Page, you want to say something?
Pastor Solomon, let me try to say it like this, from my own personal opinion. Everything that you're talking about, I've been through, and I ain't gonna talk about nobody else on the panel. That's them. I'm talking about me. Okay. Everything you're saying, I've been through it. It was a part of my process to get me to where I am now. I thank God that I went through those things, because I think it created in me a drive, a focus, a stick-to-itiveness, and I accredit the anointing on my life to that. Now, with that being said, I'll say this. Intent will always determine content. Intent always determines content. People who use the pulpit as a platform to demean, to maim, to hurt, paralyze, cripple people. They're not speaking the mind of God. And the intent was the content. They meant to do that. It was premeditated, it was calculated, and people, many people have been hurt. Countless thousands have been hurt from that type of presentation. But that is why I'm saying, and I say without any fear of retribution, COVID-19, in my humble opinion, God has used it to do a separation of who is contextual and who is preaching content from a jaded intent. And I think when we come out of this, people are going to be, they're going to be so excited to go back to places of worship. But the issue now is they've been surfing the net for 8 to 9 weeks. And they know who's teaching, they know who's preaching, they know who's not entertaining. And they're going to start gravitating to the voices that are not giving them this secular, humanistic type of presentation. Now, we can stay here all night and talk about the difference here, the difference there. We all have differences. We all have our ways of doing things. But this is what I've come to realize. Change is inevitable. You can't stop change. It's coming whether you like it or not. Jarrell Solomon is on the rise. He's coming. His ministry is coming. The best thing I can do is embrace you, ask you for my, if you need my assistance, how can I assist you? And in fact, how can you assist me in making my atmosphere for my millennials more comfortable? Teach me, show me, tell me the buzzwords I shouldn't use. Tell me, Bishop, that language now is offensive to a particular generation. Bishop, don't say it like that. But then give me space also to say, well, Solomon, this is what may offend my generation. Can we find some common ground, just some common ground where we can respect and love and honor each other? Now, I never knew you, but now we know each other. You can call me. I don't care what other pastor's busy. Call me. I'm open for dialogue. I want to talk. I want to be able to exchange. But this is part of ministry. Unfortunately, rejection, part of ministry. Being misunderstood, part of ministry. Having differences, part of ministry. My issue is, how can we say we love God the way we say we love God, and we can't get along with each other? That is antithetical to what we represent. We should find some common ground to have decent conversation. And I'm gonna say it again, and I mean this from my heart. Friction ain't bad. Friction is not a bad thing. Contention, me seeing it differently than you, that ain't a bad thing. It don't even mean I don't like you. I don't agree with you. What I'm saying is, I don't see it your way. I'm not looking at it through that prism, through that lens. I feel kind of bad the way Melaine kind of put me out there. I'm a grandfather too. I mean, I'm a granddaddy like her father. At the end of the day, I am a grandfather. And my mindset is totally different. My mindset. And by her saying that, it checked me. You know what? She's right. Because I'm looking at legacy now. I'm looking at legacy. I'm looking at passing on what God has given me to the next generation. I'm looking at that now. I don't want to be in the game. Why can't I be on the sideline as a coach, as a mentor, teaching other young men and young women how, in my opinion, to be successful? The problem is I don't want to be disrespected. I don't want to be discarded. I don't want to feel like I'm insignificant. I don't want to feel that what I'm saying now is not valuable and doesn't have credence. And I think both sides have to make each other feel important and significant. And if we could just find that balance, that because I'm like Eric. When we start saying war, by nature, I'm a fighter. By nature, I'm a fighter. But the church created this. The church created this. How I saw my parents handle created this. Being raised in church where my A had to be better than everybody else's A. My schoolwork had to be better than everybody else's schoolwork. I had to live a saved, sanctified life, and everybody else could do what they want to do. The church created this fight inside of me, but I don't feel like I have to fight my brothers and sisters, not in the church. And we disagree, but it's not a fight. We see things differently, but it's not a fight. We may not ever see how we do church the same way, but it's not a fight. It's personal preference. It's what I feel comfortable with. And why can't we just respect what you feel comfortable doing and what I feel comfortable doing? And when I come around you, I embrace what you're doing. When you come around me, you embrace what I'm doing. And we have an appreciation for it. I don't know. I don't know if that's the real answer or solution. I really don't know. But because I've got children, my daughter, my son, they say to me all the time, Dad, that's old school thinking. I believe in corporal punishment. That's what I believe till my grandkids got here. When my grandkids arrive, don't hit them like that. Don't say that to them like that. No, it's a different way. And I've learned through experience and wisdom, you're not going to follow my pattern or process. You're not going to do that. That's not that. In fact, it may not be the track that God has called you to be on. And I think we impose our tracks and our processes on people who make that process may not be for them. My process is school. I believe in education. That's me. I believe education is important, particularly when you're talking to this generation. But now, listening to the different variations of millennials, some like education, and others don't put too much premium on education. So it's like trying to strike a balance. Mullane is a millennial. Well, me and Mullane went to school together. We did a master's degree together. So that showed me she has some level of appreciation for academics, or she was raised in a culture where they pushed her towards education. Why can't we respect everybody's culture? Why we can't just do that and find a balance where I can take good from this, good from that, and use it in my application without downing the rest of it? That's kind of where I'm at. But I'm gonna help you out, my brother. People gonna dog us out. They're gonna talk about you. I'll tell you something else. Your church is growing. Your church is exploding. A lot of it don't have nothing to do with millennial. It has a lot to do with jealousy, envy, and they can't figure out how he getting all them people over there like that instead of celebrating it.
I just really quickly, Bishop Page, I said something Saturday I want to kind of bring back up real quickly, and I said this on my live. I said, I want to make clear about this platform because I'm on a couple of platforms dealing with this. And I spoke about this platform. And in that live, I mentioned you, Bishop Tell and Bishop McDaniel. And I stated, I said, many of us young guys still look up to you all. I wanted to make clear, I think Malane was on that. She chimed in on that. Yeah. And I said, I want to make clear that many of us young guys still look up to a Bishop Liston Page Jr., a Bishop Mitchell Taylor, a Bishop Eric McDaniel, to the extent that there are those that want to make war, but then there are those of us that say, hey, these guys have paved the way for us, have opened doors for us to walk through. And I want to make clear, and I want to state it again on this platform, that I believe in every single bishop that's on this platform. Because I would have, I'll be honest with you guys, I would just be like, not gonna do this. But I believe in all three of you guys. I'm one of those millennial pastors that believe that you guys still have tools, information that you could give us. Like Malane said, I'm in between because we are like the ear gates of these generations, in between these generations, hearing this, sitting down with millennials, having millennial preacher friends, hearing all of them speaking, and then have to stand in between all of this. We hear it, we see it, and then we're in the middle of it. So I want to stay on my behalf, as well as those millennial preachers, that you guys still have things that we need. You guys still have information, tools, all kinds of wisdom that we need. And I don't consider it war. I'm in between the generations that's hearing that it's a war. But I want to make clear that I believe in all three of you all. I believe that God has allowed you guys to open up doors for people such as myself and other millennial pastors and preachers that are now walking through these doors. Without a listing page, it wouldn't make preachers want to study more.
True.
You guys would say, well, what do you have now to offer us? We still think on things of that magnitude. We always look at Bishop Daniel as the celebrity. He's the one that, he knows that platform. He knows, he's been through those doors. We look at Bishop Page as the one that you got to know what you're talking about when you open up that Bible. You can't just get up there and just say anything you want to say. We look at Bishop Mitchell Taylor as the community activist. This man is in the community. He's not just behind the four walls of the church. He's in that community building, opening up opportunities, jobs for people that are jobless. So each of you have aspects that we glean from, that at least me and others, that we desire to learn from. So I don't want you guys to think that we think that you guys are obsolete at this point. Not at all. Like, we still need you even in our generation. So I just want
to I humbly appreciate your comments. I really do. I'm humbled by them. But let me say this to you. If I have ever given you or any millennial the idea that I was unapproachable, let me apologize for that, because that's not how I am. Malane will tell you that. Timothy, no, I'm not that way. But I got to be honest with you. I got to be extremely honest with you. I'm allergic to ignorance. It makes my itch. It just makes me scratch. Ignorance and people that don't understand protocol and structure. It kind of bothers me. That's my only pet peeve. That other than that, I'm real good. I like people that are straight shooters. I just like direct people. They're easier to manage. When I know what you're thinking, it's easier to manage. And what I find, now this is just me now, what I find, this generation likes to get on a keyboard, get behind a screen, and vent how they feel and not have a conversation. I'm in the conversation. Even if I offended you, Solomon, even if I offended you, I would think that you and I, because we're in the same vocation, Bishop, call me, Bishop. Hey man, how you doing? I'm doing good, Solomon. What's going on, man? Bishop, you know, I saw you out. You said something. I didn't quite understand it, and I'm a little offended. I'm a lot offended. Those are the kind of relationships that are forged to be lifelong connections. Because I teach this. If you want to find out who's going to be in your life for real, look at the level of conflict resolution. Conflict resolution will determine who is going to be a connection in your life for the long haul. If we can fall out over something that is so minuscule, what's going to happen when the horsemen show up? Jeremiah said, if we can contend with the footmen, what we going to do when the horses show up? So I think that disagreements, Eric and Mitchell Taylor, my closest friends, all three of us have had major fallouts with each other. Major. We don't agree. We didn't see it that way. We talk to each other, but you know, I tell you something. Noel Jones told me. He said, "Paige, if people in the world ever heard how we talk to each other behind closed doors, they wouldn't think we knew God the way we go at it with each other, because there's some tension there sometimes, but it really strengthens the relationship when we have a disagreement, and then I got to call and humble myself and say, Eric, man, I'm sorry. I hurt you. Forgive me. Please forgive me. And vice versa. Mitchell, I mean, these things make us strong. I would think that millennials with us would be a strong bind right now, since we know that it ain't nothing but the devil, because he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. We should recognize this is the devil, and we should be rebuking the devil, because at the end of the day, all this stuff is spiritual. It's the devil trying to keep me and you from being connected. It's the devil keeping me and Melaine disconnected. It's the devil got me looking at Timothy side eyes. That's the devil. And we need to recognize that's the devil, call that demon out, and make that demon that much more angry by getting closer and uniting arm in arm and showing the world that the body of Christ is one and not divided based on generation.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I couldn't, Melaine, add to that.
Well, I wanted to make a statement and ask just one question with regard to this millennial thing, because I graduated from undergrad in college in 2003, and I went straight into the workforce. And that was like the beginning of millennials beginning to go to work after education. And back then I started doing research. Back then millennials were called Generation Y. This is before we even got the term millennial. Mm-hmm. I wrote a book in 2008 based on my experience in the workforce and what seemed to be generations being at odds with each other, because Generation Y, aka millennials, came to work with a different mindset than the rest of the other generations. Whereas people would come and stay 20, 30, 40 years. You get a good job, you stay rooted, you stay grounded, you work your way up. Millennials would come in and be like, I want to meet the CEO from day one. They would come and be like, I don't like this job. 2 months later, I'm at another job. Like doing things that the other generation really felt were like jarring. And people in HR were like, who are these kids, quote unquote? Because they're 21, 22, 23, thinking they're going to come in here and start running us. Now, that was in 2004, 2005, 2006. Now we're 14 years later, and you got millennials that are 37, 36, 35, have families, have careers, have established themselves. So we're long behind kind of in this millennial conversation per se, because millennials and this intergenerational conflict, so to speak, has been going on for over a decade. And so I kind of want to broaden the idea. It's not just the church. If you are a millennial and you watching, you know at your job, there's that older supervisor who don't get it, who want to have a meeting when they can send an email, who want to talk on the phone when, again, you can instant message. We don't need to talk about this. We don't need to meet about this. You just need to let me know what to do. You don't have to call me all day. I don't want to check in all day. You see, just a different way of thinking and being. Same thing like Timothy said, in the family, raising your children, different than the way the boomers raised us. And so I think, Bishop Page, I really highly respect you for what you said in terms of we can come to you. We can talk to you. You're willing to give us tips. You're willing to listen. And I believe every bishop on here, Bishop McDaniels, as the peacemaker, Bishop Taylor, I believe that you all are open to really meshing with us so that we can go forward in a more unified state. My question is, what does deference look like for you? Because that's a word that seems to keep coming forth. Like, we just want the respect, the deference, not just here, but in general. The older generation may feel like we feel entitled. So what does deference look like to you all?
Wow. You know what? Wow, that's such a deep, thought-provoking question, because I'm going to tell you what, as you unpacked your statements, I'm thinking now that deference may be more attached to our own personal narcissism, our ego. I think as we get older, it's crazy for me to say this, but it's true. As we get older, we still look for validation. We still need some endorsement. And I think we look for that validation that we will call deference and respect from the generation that's coming up after us. We would think that we would get the honor that we have done what you all are trying to do, that we would get from you maybe a hint of what we gave the generation that preceded us, because the respect that and Solomon, you know this, the respect that we would give a Roy Brown, a Bishop Liston Page Sr., a Bishop William L. Bonner, a Bishop Allen McDaniel, a Bishop Moses Taylor. Man, let me tell you something. Preaching for Mitch's dad when I was a young preacher, the highlight for me would be Moses Taylor sitting there and just want to hear what I had to say, to go up to Eric's father's church and he just sit there, even in the audience, and say, preach. I mean, that level of validation. I think maybe because we're not quite there at legendary status yet, where our fathers are, I think maybe it's just I don't know. Maybe we just want to feel like you all appreciate the process we went through. So when Solomon don't go through my process, in my ignorance and in my narcissism, I say he arrogant. No, he ain't arrogant. This is just a different way, a different process. He's got greater success quicker than I got success because things are so expedited today. See, we didn't grow up in the internet age. And when you talked about a meeting, I wish I could take my foot and kick myself in the behind right now, because that's me. That's me all day long. I want to meet. We got to meet, y'all. We got to meet. And they're looking at me like, Bishop, for real? Can you just email me what you want? You want to meet for real? And I say, we're going to have a conference call. They're like, Bishop, for real? Conference? Y'all still got conference lines? I mean, they say stuff like that, but listening to you, listening to Solomon, listening to Timothy, it creates tension in my mind now. You know what? Maybe that's the reason why it's difficult to get young people on my team because the way I do things is so stark, so contrasting. They don't want to disrespect me by saying, Bishop, we ain't interested in being a 2-hour meeting with you. They don't want to say that. Yeah, I'm busy. I got this going. So I'm starting through this conversation. Don't laugh at me. Through this conversation, I'm going to have to make some serious alterations because I'm seeing that I am dated. I am a little antiquated in my presentation of thought, how I would do things on a corporate level, where Mitch is probably far more advanced. Eric may be far more advanced. I just like tactile. That's just me. I like you sitting over there. I like Robert's rule of order. Were you second? I mean, I'm just stuck in that mode, and y'all saying, what is all that about? Bishop, we can do this meeting in 20 minutes, and you got us here for 3 hours. So I get it.
I think
y'all with that, with the meetings, we could say it by a text. We don't. I'm already there. I'm with y'all. See, that's what I mean. Some of the things is definitely no fight with me. Damn.
Listen, I have learned over the last 16 years. I have 125 full-time employees that work across 4 campuses and 28 satellites. All of them are millennials and below.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to. I'm the papa. And in between me, I have millennials that are directors. Maybe some of them are watching this live right now. So the directors deal with the managers. The managers deal with the team members. You know what I mean? The team members deal with the clients. I mean, so there's, but you're right, Mullane. Like my managing director, I know I've learned over the years. I'll email just 3 points, boop, 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 and get it done. Whereas before, I'm like, let's get a meeting, let's and I got to remind myself, listen, you got a thought, you got an idea, give it to them. So you know what I start doing? I start realizing this about a decade ago. I go into a meeting now and I sit down with my people. I just had a meeting yesterday. I know my daughter's probably laughing if she's watching this. And I said to them, I got an idea. And my philosophy is this. I'm not the smartest person. I surround myself with smart people. And I said, listen, I want to climb this mountain. I want to climb it by next week. How can I do it? And I sit back and I let them tell me how to climb that mountain. And that's the top and bottom line. That's leadership. That's leadership. Delegation is leadership. Understanding your generation so you can serve them well. That's leadership. And I think that was a very powerful point you made, Mullane, about, because I had to learn that because I lead millennials and below, and they don't want the kind of chit chat that me and Bishop Page. See, when I want to have long conversations, I got to call Bishop Page. They don't want to talk to me long. My son don't want to talk to me long. None of my younger ministers don't want to have long conversations. I got to call Bishop Page because that Negro will talk to me till 5 a.m. That's just how we built.
Yes, because I don't. But I do want to say to Mullane's question, I don't know if we ever fully answer her question, what would make us feel respected? And I don't know if this is a good way to answer this question, but it's what comes to my mind right now. Because I don't, I'm not big on. I don't have like an ego issue, and I'm not big on. I don't need people to celebrate me and all that kind of stuff. That's not really me. I think for me is I just don't want to be disrespected, and I think sometimes, and then with a desire to change and a desire to bring in a new and a up to date version. I think some of the comments, some of the remarks in some of the messages, I think they become disrespectful, and I just think that um, we should be mindful, and I say that two ways. I think respect works two ways. I think just as I don't want to be disrespected, I should also not disrespect you. And as long as we can stay on that same level, go ahead. Whatever you want to change, you could change what you want to change without disrespecting me. You can do things different without um, um, you can build your ministry without tearing down mine. And it's so that's that I think for me that's that would help, and that's one of the things that can sometimes bother me. There have been, I always say I was the first. I'm like the original millennial because I got in trouble. I got in so much trouble about asking questions, about wanting explanations about stuff, and so I understand. I understand a lot. And there are times that you guys, like, I'm sitting over here rooting for you. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. This is great hands that the church is going to be in. But then sometimes that when that disrespect starts, it it kind of sometimes it can be a turnoff. And I just think on both sides, the disrespect should be thrown out, and you take the George Washington, I take the Holland, somebody else take the Lincoln, somebody even goes all the way around and go through Queens and take the Triborough, but we still get to know each other.
Hey, Mr. Taylor, Mitch, you could tell that Negro been in the house for 9. He want to go to Jersey so bad. He don't know.
Bad.
Get out.
Well, listen, guys. I would love to continue this. We probably can continue this conversation another 45, maybe another hour. But it's already been 2 hours and 7 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time. I want to be respectful of the viewers' time, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all the viewers that have watched these 4 installments. And you guys have blessed, you have opened up a dialogue that I pray that others like us that share this generational divide, not because we're divided, but because we live on different platforms, that there would be some dialogue. Listen, if you have a relationship with a pastor that is younger and coming up, embrace that. Listen, I'm going to say, just like Bishop Page said earlier, I don't have no ego issues. I don't have no big head, nothing like that. One thing about my faith, they said, I like my bishop because he works with us. And that's the reality. You have to work with people and be relatable. So I'm open. Listen, I've accomplished a lot. I have a lot to offer, and I freely offer it to anyone on this panel and anyone that's watching that sincerely wants to replicate the ministry of Jesus. It's not just about preaching, There's more than, matter of fact, my dad told me preaching is 5% of the ministry. 5% of what we do is preaching. And so, thank you so much. I want to give everyone an opportunity to have closing remarks, and then we're going to benedict. Let's start with Bishop McDaniels, and we'll go around and end with Pastor Jarrell Solomon.
Appreciate all of my co-panelists, and I'm I'm one of your biggest supporters. So I'm always here to all my millennial preachers and teachers. You know, I'm here. Whatever I can do, just you know how to find me.
Bishop Page.
I echo the same sentiments of Eric McDaniel. I love all of you all. I love you, and I pray much success for your lives, your ministries, and your family. What I will hasten us all to do, though, is integrity attract respect. We have to start walking in a high level of integrity because integrity attracts respect.
Amen.
I want to say thank you to Bishop Taylor, to Bishop McDaniel, to Bishop Page. I appreciate being a part of these last 4 episodes. And I want to thank you for being the integral men of God that you have been. I thank you I respect you for your years in ministry and for all that you have accomplished. I bind the spirit of offense in the body of Christ among this generation, that generation, a previous an upcoming generation. And I just believe that we can integrate this thing where the kingdom is going to be better at the end of the day. That's the end result. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this.
Bishop Taylor, Bishop Page, Bishop McDaniel, I also want to say just thank you for extending the invitation to me and for opening up and being transparent about everything from your own lives, your family lives, your ministry lives, and things you've endured through the years. I thank you for your paving the way, and I value your experience. And also thank you for sharing that you're open to having others come to you, talk to you, call you, sit in your office, because it's really, really needed. And I just want to say I love you all and your families, your children, your grandchildren, your pop. And I love you all. And then I also want to say to Jarrell and Timony, and that's no respect not using your titles because we all grew up together. But I want to say I also value you guys for what you have done in ministry, because you both have really blazed trails and you both are very significant to our city for the younger generation, because you go all around the country preaching, teaching, getting people healed, saved, delivered, ministering to women, ministering to men, in prophetic ministry and music ministry. And I think a lot of times we don't say thank you to our own, and we don't value our own. So I want to say to both of you that I love you, I value you guys, and I just pray God's best for you. Thank you for being transparent about what you've been through in your own lives, your personal lives, your family, just opening up and sharing. And I pray that God really would reward you for your sacrifice, because you remained with God even when everything was upside down. And so that's really from my heart.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you. Wow, that was a lot to say. Wow, thank you. I want to say thank you again to Bishop Taylor, Bishop McDaniel, and Bishop Page. You guys really blessed my life. I always figure a person that's really not accepted in New York City, and not because anyone did anything to me. I just always felt that way, like I'm not accepted in my home. Maybe because I'm a little radical, a little out of the box, whatever it is. But I genuinely love you guys. I've always looked up to you guys. I knew y'all way before y'all knew of me. And I was watching you guys way before you guys were somehow watching me. I'm grateful that you guys reached out to me to be a part of it. It made me feel like I'm a part of my city. I love what you guys are doing. To Melaine and to Timony. Like Melaine said, I really honor both of you guys. Both of you have been great inspirations to me. In many ways you probably will never know. I'm grateful to the both of you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm glad to have connected with all of you. And I just believe God is going to get the glory and has gotten the glory out of this platform. Love you guys.
Excellent. Well, this is Thank you so much, and this won't be the end. The pandemic created the beginning, but this won't be the end of our fellowship, our dialogue. We're going to continue this off of this public platform, and hopefully be able to develop some next generational dialogue in New York. And we should really think about that. Bishop, we should really think about that. Once this pandemic is cleared and we can whatnot, we should really put what we have said on this 4-part series into practice, so that we can model it, and not lose generations, and not, create this misunderstanding, you know what I mean? Misinformation, disinformation, if I might, about where we are with each other. So thank you guys. I love you. May the peace of God follow you, and may God bless and enhance everything you do in the kingdom. God bless you, and thank you everyone for joining us for this dialogue, passing the baton. Whose way you take it.